Stop letting people walk all over you. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That sinking feeling in your stomach when someone dismisses your opinion. That moment when you say yes, even though every fiber of your body was screaming no. That exhaustion you feel because you've been carrying everyone else's needs while ignoring your own. You're not weak, you're not broken. You've just trained yourself to shrink so other people can be comfortable. And I need you to hear this. The more you let people walk all over you, the more you tell yourself you don't matter. Think about how many times you've swallowed your words just to avoid conflict. How many times you've smiled while being disrespected because it was easier to stay quiet. That's not kindness. That's self-abandonment. You can't keep living like that. Life doesn't reward the person who sacrifices their boundaries for approval. It rewards the person who stands up, who speaks up, who decides their worth is non-negotiable. Here's the truth. People treat you based on what you allow. If you're always the doormat, they'll keep wiping their feet on you. If you always say yes, they'll never think to ask. If you never stand tall, no one will make space for you. Respect isn't handed out. It's demanded by the way you carry yourself, by the way you honor your own boundaries. It's going to feel uncomfortable at first. Saying no will feel harsh. Speaking your truth will make your voice shake, but shaking is still speaking. Boundaries are not walls, they're doors. Doors that let in respect, love, and connection, and keep out the people who only want a take. The first time you stand up for yourself, you'll feel terrified. The second time, you'll feel strong. And by the third time, you'll realize you're no longer someone people can walk over. You're someone they respect. This is your wake-up call. Stop shrinking. Stop apologizing for existing. Stop waiting for permission to stand tall. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to demand respect. The moment you stop letting people walk all over you is the moment you finally start walking your own path. Stop letting people walk all over you and recognize your own worth. That's not just a phrase, it's a reality check. Think back to the last time you let someone dismiss your feelings, talk over you, or take advantage of your time. You probably felt a sting of anger or frustration, but instead of saying something, you swallowed it. Why? Because deep down, you didn't want to rock the boat. Maybe you were afraid of losing that person's approval, or maybe you thought keeping quiet was easier than defending yourself. But let's be honest, how did you feel afterward? Respected? Valued? Or did you walk away feeling smaller, invisible, like your worth had been chipped away? I remember watching a colleague of mine in a meeting who always had great ideas. But every single time someone louder interrupted him, and instead of fighting for his voice, he just smiled and let it go. After months of this, guess who got the promotion? The louder voice? Not the better idea? Was it fair? No. But here's the point. The world rarely gives respect to people who don't claim it for themselves. If you allow people to walk all over you, they will. Not because they're inherently cruel, but because you've silently given them permission. So how do you stop it? First, you have to see your worth, really see it. Ask yourself, why do I matter? What do I bring to the table? And then, this is the harder part, you have to start living like it. Imagine a house with no locks on the doors. Anyone can walk in, take what they want, leave a mess, and you're left cleaning it up. That's what happens when you don't put boundaries in place. Respect is your lock, and you don't need to shout or slam doors to use it. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, I'm not available right now, or I don't appreciate being spoken to that way. Do you know what happens when you do that? People notice, they adjust, because they can sense that you've drawn a line. It's not going to feel natural right away. If you've spent your life people pleasing, the first time you stand up for yourself, you'll probably feel guilty. But guilt doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're breaking a pattern. Think about it. How many years have you trained yourself to put others ahead of you? Isn't it time to retrain yourself to believe that you're worth respect? The truth is, nobody is coming to hand you your worth on a silver platter. You have to claim it. You have to own it. And when you do, something powerful shifts. People start listening when you speak. They start valuing your time. They stop assuming you'll bend and instead begin respecting your backbone. Because here's the secret. You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. And when you stop letting people walk all over you, you finally step into the space where you belong, standing tall, grounded, and unshakably worthy. Saying yes when you mean no is not an act of kindness. It's an act of self-abandonment. On the surface, it feels polite, even noble, to go along with what others want. You tell yourself you're being helpful, you're avoiding conflict, you're keeping the peace. But Underneath, something inside you starts to erode. Think about the last time you agreed to do something you didn't want to do. Maybe you stayed late at work even though you were exhausted. Maybe you agreed to lend money you couldn't spare. Maybe you went along with a plan that made you miserable just so nobody else would feel disappointed. At that moment, you weren't being kind. You were abandoning your own needs, your own truth, and your own boundaries. I once knew someone who said yes to everything. If a coworker needed help, she was there. If her family asked for a favor, she dropped everything. If a friend wanted her time, she cleared her schedule. Everyone loved her until she was too drained to function. Eventually, she burned out, resentful and invisible, because while she had been busy making sure everyone else was happy, she had completely neglected herself. The irony: the people she was trying to please never truly appreciated the sacrifice. They got used to her yes and expected it every time. Isn't that what happens when we say yes for the wrong reasons? We think we're creating connection, but really we're teaching others that our needs don't matter. Here's the hard truth: every yes you give someone else is a no to yourself, and every time you betray yourself in the name of kindness, you chip away at your confidence. Imagine looking in the mirror after a long day of saying yes to things that drained you. Do you see someone empowered, or do you see someone worn down, someone who feels unimportant? Is that the life you want to build, one where you exist only to satisfy the demands of others? The solution isn't to become selfish or unkind, it's to become honest. The next time someone asks for your time, money, or energy, pause and ask yourself, do I genuinely want to say yes? If the answer is no, practice giving that answer without apology. You don't owe anyone elaborate excuses. A simple, I can't right now, or that doesn't work for me, is enough. At first, your voice may tremble, you may feel guilty. But guilt doesn't mean you've done something wrong, it means you're breaking a habit of self-abandonment. Over time, something shifts. People begin to respect your no. They realize you're not someone they can lean on endlessly without giving back. And more importantly, you start to respect yourself, because saying no is not rejection. It's self-protection. It's choosing to value your time, your energy, and your peace over the fleeting comfort of pleasing someone else. The day you stop saying yes when you mean no is the day you stop betraying yourself and start living with integrity. People treat you based on what you allow and the boundaries you set. That's the unfiltered truth. If you consistently accept disrespect, lateness, dismissiveness, or being taken advantage of, you're silently teaching others that this behavior is okay. And they will keep repeating it, not necessarily because they're bad people, but because you've created the conditions that let it happen. Think about it. When was the last time someone spoke to you in a way that made you uncomfortable, and instead of speaking up, you brushed it off? Maybe you told yourself it wasn't worth the fight, but what happened after that? Did their behavior stop, or did it continue, maybe even get worse? That's the cost of not setting boundaries. I remember a friend who constantly complained about how her coworkers dumped extra work on her. She'd stay late every night, overwhelmed, but still smiled and said, "Sure, I'll handle it." Over time, her manager and teammates stopped even asking politely. They just assumed she would pick up the slack. She resented them, but here's the uncomfortable truth: she had trained them to believe it was okay. By never setting boundaries, she allowed the behavior to grow. The day she finally said, "I can't take on more right now, my plate is full," something remarkable happened. They backed off. They respected her words. Why? Because she showed them what she would and would not allow. Isn't that the same principle that shows up in all relationships, romantic, professional, and personal? Boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about teaching people how to treat you. Imagine your life as a house. Without a fence, anyone can wander in, leave trash on the lawn, and take whatever they want. The fence doesn't make you unkind. It makes your property clear. It says, "Here's where I end," and you begin. And when people see the fence, they adjust their behavior. Isn't it the same with your time, your energy, your respect? If you don't mark the limits, how can anyone know where they are? Here's what makes boundaries tricky: fear. Fear that if you say no, people won't like you. Fear that if you stand up for yourself, they'll leave. But here's the question you need to ask: what's the cost of not setting them? Do you really want a life where your peace, your time, and your worth are constantly compromised just so others can stay comfortable? That's not connection, that's control. The actionable step is simple but powerful. Start small. The next time someone interrupts you, instead of shrinking, say, "I wasn't finished yet." The next time someone asks you for something you can't give, respond with, I'm not available right now." These aren't walls, they're guideposts, and every time you enforce them, you reinforce to others and yourself that you deserve respect. The day you begin setting boundaries is the day people start treating you differently. Not because they suddenly changed, but because you finally showed them how to. And once you realize that power, you'll never go back to a life where you allow others to decide your worth for you. Silence is one of the most underrated forms of power. Most people think that in order to be respected, they need to argue louder, defend harder, and constantly explain themselves. But have you ever noticed how the person who doesn't rush to fill the air often holds the most authority in the room? Silence makes people uncomfortable, and in that space, you gain control. Think about a negotiation. The first one to break the silence usually loses. Why? Because silence demands attention. It forces the other person to lean in, to question themselves, to wonder what you're thinking. I once worked with a colleague who had mastered this art. In meetings, when a controversial idea was thrown around, he didn't rush to respond. He leaned back, folded his hands, and just stayed quiet. The room would shift. People would start to second guess their own arguments. They'd fill the silence with nervous chatter, and when he finally spoke, calmly, directly, everyone listened. His words carried weight not because he spoke the most, but because he spoke the least and made it count. Isn't that the kind of respect we all crave? To have people stop, pay attention, and actually hear us. Silence is also powerful when dealing with people who push your boundaries. Have you ever had someone throw a cruel comment your way, expecting you to react? Most people lash back, defend, or get flustered, which only feeds the other person's control. But what if you didn't? What if instead you just looked at them, calm and quiet, letting the weight of their words hang in the air? That silence becomes a mirror, reflecting their ugliness back at them. You're not lowering yourself to their level. You're showing strength by not giving them the reaction they crave. This doesn't mean you become passive. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It's intentional. It's the pause that makes your response more deliberate, more powerful. It's the moment where you take control of your emotions instead of letting someone else hijack them. Because let's be honest, how many times have you said something in the heat of the moment that you later regretted? Silence is the space that protects you from that regret. There's also silence in the sense of walking away. When someone consistently disrespects you, your most powerful move is not another argument, not another attempt to prove your worth, but silence followed by distance. You don't owe everyone an explanation. Sometimes the quiet withdrawal of your energy speaks louder than any words ever could. Doesn't it feel empowering to imagine removing yourself without drama, without noise? Just a quiet statement that says, I deserve better. Here's the actionable part. The fact is, practice intentional pauses. The next time someone challenges you, instead of rushing to answer, take a breath, count to 3 in your head, watch how the energy in the conversation shifts. That pause alone can transform the dynamic, and when you do speak, your words will land harder because they're not just a reaction, they're a choice. Silence is not empty. It's full of power, full of clarity, full of strength. The moment you learn to use it instead of fear it, you stop being the one scrambling for approval and start being the one who commands respect without even raising your voice. Walking away is one of the hardest lessons you'll ever learn, but it's also one of the most freeing. We grow up believing that persistence is everything, that quitting means failure, that walking away makes you weak. But that's not true. Walking away from situations, relationships, or environments that diminish you is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the strength to say, I deserve better than this, even when every part of you wants to stay just to prove a point. How many times have you stayed somewhere you didn't belong just because you thought leaving would make you look like a failure? How many times have you given chance after chance to someone who kept showing you they didn't value you? At what cost? I remember talking to someone who stayed in a toxic workplace for years because they didn't want to be seen as someone who gave up. Every day, they were drained, undervalued, and stressed to the point of breaking. They believed that sticking it out would one day earn them respect, recognition, or validation. It never came. Do you know what finally changed their life? They walked away. They took their skills, their energy, their time, and invested them somewhere that appreciated them. Within months, their health improved, their confidence grew, and they finally understood that leaving wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Isn't that powerful? The very thing they feared, walking away, turned out to be their freedom. The same principle applies to personal relationships. How often do we hold on to friendships, relationships, Or family dynamics that constantly disrespect us. We justify it, we excuse it, we tell ourselves we'll change them if we just love harder, if we just endure longer. But what message are you sending to yourself when you stay in a place where you're treated like you don't matter? You're telling yourself you don't deserve better. Walking away is how you break that cycle. It's how you declare to the world and to yourself, I know my value, and I will not settle for less. Actionable advice here is simple but not easy. You need to set non-negotiables for your life. Decide what you will and will not tolerate. And when someone or something crosses that line repeatedly, you walk. No drama, no explanation, just walk. Because you don't owe your energy to people or places that drain you. You owe it to yourself to protect your peace. Isn't your peace of mind worth more than proving a point to someone who doesn't care? Walking away is not giving up. It's redirecting. It's saying, this path, this person, this environment is not worthy of my energy, so I will take it elsewhere. And that choice is the ultimate form of power. When you walk away from what doesn't serve you, you open the door to what does. You stop fighting battles that aren't yours, and you finally free yourself to